Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I took my client from this multi-tonal medium brown hair to a more sun-kissed blonde shade, working off of her natural base. This is perfect for clients that don't like to have to come into the salon too often. So if you want to see how I achieved this hair color, then please just keep watching. The lightener I am using is by GK Hair. It is their Blue Lightening Powder. She did have bands of darker pieces in the mid shaft. So in the first bowl, I'm going to be doing 2 scoops of this powder with 30 volume. And in the second bowl, I'm going to be doing the same amount, but using 20 volume. And that is what I'm going to be using on her ends since they did not need as much lift. I'm just going to be eyeballing the mixture. You can go ahead and measure if you want. This is just what works for me. Then I go ahead and mix the bowls and make sure the consistency is how I want it. And I also added the GK Hair Shield additive. It helps to build bonds and make sure that the hair is protected during the chemical process. For this specific process, I started in the back at the very nape of the neck, and you can see that I am taking 1 to 1.5 inch sections. I like to gently tease the area and then weave out the amount that I want. I do this to help diffuse the line. You don't have to do the teasing method. This is just what I like to do. And then I place a foil underneath, and with that 30 volume, I'm going to start right under that teased section. And then I go ahead and do the 20 volume on her ends. I like to use a leave-in spray right at the base of the tease, which also helps to diffuse the line, and then I place a foil on top. You can see that I am doing the exact same thing to all of these sections, just teasing the hair and weaving out the amount that I want to be lightened. Then I just place the foil underneath and start at the very top with the 30 volume. Like I said, she did have darker bands of color in that area. That is why I was using 30 volume there. And then I go ahead and use 20 volume on the ends. Another thing I like to do is after horizontally placing the lightener, I go in vertically, as you can see here, and blend upward into that teased area. This also helps to diffuse that line as well. I have tried many different techniques while doing looks like this, and this is just what I like to do best. Everybody has their own techniques, and this just happens to be the technique that I personally like. Every client will also be different in how you do the process, and this is just what I determined that I was going to be doing on this client, just because she did have bands of hair color, like I said, and we were also working off of her natural base, which was grown out to about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And the reason I chose to use foils as opposed to MB mesh or balayaging the hair with saran wrap is because we were lifting her quite a few levels. If she was a natural blonde or did not have any color buildup on her hair, I probably would have gone for the MB mesh method. But since we were trying to keep the heat in and needing to lift her quite a bit, that is why I chose to do a foil technique. Although on techniques like this, I usually do the teasing method along with the leave-in spray to help diffuse the line. But the formulas that I use, as well as the product that I use, such as MB mesh or freehanding or foil work, is going to be determined differently for every client that I have sitting in my chair. Like I said, for this specific client, we did need to lift her quite a few levels, and that is why we had to use the foil to help incubate heat on the head. If I have a blonde in my chair that only wants a little bit of lift or brightening, I usually go for MB mesh, or if somebody is wanting more of a subtle look, I will do a freehand method. But when lifting quite a few levels, I always go for foils. This just helps keeps my work nice and neat, as well as lifts my client typically in one process as opposed to having to do 2 or 3 different processes. Just keep in mind that every client you have is going to be different, and you are not going to be able to do the same techniques or processes for every single client sitting in your chair. When doing the very top for this process, I did go slightly higher around the face area. I usually like a brighter and lighter look around the face and then gradually go a little bit downward toward the back of the hair. This is something I do on most clients, and this is what I decided to do on this specific client as well. Once I was completely done with the process, I went ahead and set my timer for 30 minutes, and we ended up not having to tone her hair. It was lifted to a nice caramel and honey blonde hair color. Once I got her back to the chair, I towel dried her and put in leave-in products, and then I always use my wet brush to gently brush out my client's hair. The wet brush is definitely something I recommend using if you are not. It is perfect for detangling wet hair without ripping out your hair or your client's hair. I then trimmed off about an inch of her hair at the very ends to get rid of any damage and split ends. And before doing her layers, I did blow dry her hair. I just really wanted to make sure that the layers were nice and blended and we were not taking off any more than we had to. Layers do tend to be a little bit more damaged since we tend to focus styling and heat tools on those areas. So that is why I waited to cut her layers until her hair was fully dry. Once I had the lengths of her hair trimmed, I went in with my blow dryer and rough dried her hair. I just wanted to get rid of a lot of the moisture that I had in her hair before going in and using my brush. The brush I like to use is a vented brush, and I love how big it is. You will see here in just a second how much area it covers. It definitely helps with aiding in blow drying the hair quickly. So I just go ahead and rough dry the hair and then go in with this vented hairbrush, and that just really helps to begin to smooth out the hair. And because I already knew I was going to be going in and trimming up her layers, I did not want to use a round brush. Going in with a round brush and then trimming afterward would have disrupted the volume, but you can go ahead and use a round brush if you are ready to style. Once her hair was fully dry, I went in and trimmed up her layers doing a point cutting technique. This just makes sure that the layers are nice and blended, and she does have fine hair, so I try to be very careful when doing layers in fine hair. You don't want it to look like stair steps or chunky, so I do recommend doing point cutting layers. I did this same technique all over her hair, and as you can see here, when working with layers, I was taking bigger sections and making sure to drop a little bit of the length at the bottom. You do not want to be cutting into that length. That will create a wispy line, and I did want to keep it more on the blunt side just because it does make the hair look a little bit thicker. Another thing with hair, especially fine or thin hair, to be careful around the hairline as well as around the ears, because the hairline is not as long as in the back. You want to be careful not to cut into the length at all. So you can see here that I am making sure to drop the length and not taking off as much through the very front and around that ear area. I just wanted you guys to see the blend before I went in and added curls in her hair. You can see that it blends in from her natural and just gives it more of a sun-kissed look. And the way I like to style hair to make it look fuller and really pretty for pictures is to do Flatiron Waves. This is my favorite curling technique for more of a loose and relaxed curl. So you can see here that I am just taking about 1 to 1.5 inch sections and curling the very ends, avoiding the top of the hair just to give it more of a relaxed vibe. And to give it more of a natural feel, I mostly like to take the hair away from the face, but every now and again I will take one and direct it the other way. This also helps to prevent the curls from running into one another and looking like one big curl on the side of the head. So that is just a tip I have, is to alternate some of the curls, and that way your hair will also look thicker. I back combed her hair a bit and then added hairspray for hold, and this is the finished look. I wanted to show you guys what it looked like in the natural sunlight. You can see that it does have a warmer tone, which we both were really happy with. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope you stick around and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.